The wine hit my shirt like a crimson accusation, spreading across the cheap polyester blend in a pattern that screamed loser to everyone in the ballroom. Felix Rourde's smile was perfectly practiced, the kind that said accident, while his eyes whispered intentional. "Oh, Orion, how clumsy of me," Felix announced, loud enough for the entire VIP section to hear. His voice carried that particular brand of false concern that rich people perfect in business school. "Someone get this man some napkins." I stood there, dripping Bordeaux that probably cost more than my monthly car payment, watching my wife Nola rush over with a handful of white cloth. Her face showed all the right expressions: concern, embarrassment, sympathy, but her eyes held something else entirely: relief, maybe, or satisfaction. "Here, honey," she said, dabbing at the stain with the enthusiasm of someone cleaning a public restroom. "Maybe you should go freshen up." The crowd had already moved on, their attention span for my humiliation lasting about as long as a commercial break. But I caught the sideways glances, the barely suppressed smirks, the whispered comments that followed me like a bad reputation. Felix Rourde, CEO of Pinnacle Marketing Solutions, Nola's boss, and apparently the star of tonight's celebration, watched me with the satisfied expression of a cat who'd just knocked a canary off its perch. At 45, he had the kind of artificially maintained good looks that came from expensive personal trainers and even more expensive dental work. His suit probably cost more than I made in 3 months as a freelance journalist. "No harm done," I said, forcing my voice to stay level. "Accidents happen." But this wasn't an accident, and we all knew it. This was a message delivered in vintage wine and public humiliation. The message was simple: you don't belong here. The thing is, I'd been getting that message for months now. It came in the form of Nola's increasingly late nights at the office, her sudden interest in expensive clothes and jewelry, the way she'd started pronouncing certain words with a slight accent that hadn't been there during our 15 years of marriage. It came in the form of text messages she'd quickly hide when I entered the room, and phone calls she'd take in the bathroom with the water running. Tonight's little wine incident was just Felix's way of making it official. I excused myself from the ballroom, walking past the ice sculptures and champagne fountains toward the men's room. The hotel was one of those places that tried too hard to impress, all marble and gold fixtures, with the kind of lighting that made everyone look either angelic or jaundiced, depending on their net worth. In the bathroom mirror, I looked like exactly what I was: a 42-year-old former newspaper reporter who'd been downsized out of relevance and was now scraping by writing articles about local restaurant openings and high school football games. My brown hair was thinning in all the wrong places, and my face had the slightly weathered look of someone who'd spent too many years chasing stories that nobody wanted to read. The wine stain looked like a target painted on my chest. I was dabbing at it with wet paper towels when Sasha Martinez walked in. Sasha had been my photographer back when I still worked for the Tribune, and now he tended bar at Mickey's boxing club downtown. He was one of the few people who still treated me like I mattered. "Jesus, Orion," he said, taking in my appearance. "You look like you wrestled with a wine bottle and lost." "Felix Rourde happened," I said. Sasha's expression darkened. He'd met Felix exactly once, at a company picnic 2 years ago, and had immediately pegged him as what he called a trust fund sociopath. "That guy's still sniffing around Nola?" I didn't answer directly, but Sasha had always been good at reading between the lines. It was what made him a great photographer and an even better friend. "You know what you need?" he said, checking the bathroom stalls to make sure we were alone. "You need to stop playing defense." "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means you're letting them write the story. Time to grab the pen back." Sasha reached into his jacket and pulled out a small vial of clear liquid. "Harmless," he said, "but effective. Add a few drops to any red wine, and within 10 minutes it turns the most interesting shade of purple you've ever seen. Completely safe, tastes normal, but it stains everything it touches." I stared at the vial. Where did you even get this? Photography chemicals. I use it for developing certain types of prints. The purple reaction happens when it mixes with the tannins in red wine. Sasha, You can't what? Fight back? Stand up for yourself? Make them look as ridiculous as they're trying to make you look? Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. Through the bathroom's ventilation system, I could hear the sounds of the party continuing, laughter, clinking glasses, the kind of conversations where people said nothing important very loudly. Felix is going to make a toast, I said. Nola mentioned it earlier, something about his promotion to regional director. Sasha grinned. Well then, sounds like a perfect opportunity for a little chemistry experiment. 20 minutes later, I was back in the ballroom, my shirt still stained, but my purpose crystal clear. The crowd had gathered around a small stage where Felix stood with a microphone, a fresh glass of wine in his hand. Nola was in the front row, gazing up at him with the kind of adoration she used to reserve for me. Ladies and gentlemen, Felix began, his voice carrying easily over the crowd. Tonight marks not just a celebration of my new position, but a toast to success, to ambition, and to surrounding ourselves with people who share our vision. His eyes found mine across the room, and his smile sharpened. Sometimes, he continued, we have to leave behind the things that no longer serve us. The outdated, the irrelevant, the stains on our otherwise perfect picture. The crowd chuckled appreciatively. Nola's cheeks flushed with what I assumed was embarrassment on my behalf. Felix raised his wine glass high. So here's to new beginnings, and to... The transformation was beautiful in its suddenness. The deep red wine began to shift, taking on an electric purple hue that spread through the liquid like ink in water. Felix, mid-sentence, watched in horror as his glass became a beacon of ridiculous color. What the... he started to say, just as the glass slipped from his suddenly nervous fingers. The purple wine exploded across his pristine white shirt, his Italian silk tie, and the front of his $1,000 suit. But the real masterpiece was his face. The way his confident expression crumbled into confusion, then embarrassment, then rage. The crowd erupted in laughter. Someone shouted, "Looks like grape Kool-Aid!" Another voice called out, "Is that the new company color?" Nola rushed toward the stage, her face a mask of mortification. But there was nothing she could do. Felix stood there, dripping purple like some kind of corporate Barney, while 300 people pointed and laughed and reached for their phones. I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Satisfaction. But as I watched Felix's eyes scan the crowd and land on me with laser-focused suspicion, I realized this was just the beginning. The wine stain on my shirt had been an opening move. The purple disaster on stage was my response. Now it was his turn again. The DJ cut the music with the abruptness of a car accident. The ballroom fell into that particular kind of silence that only comes right before something terrible happens. Felix, still dripping purple and looking like he'd been attacked by a giant grape, had somehow regained control of the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, his voice tight with barely controlled fury, "it seems we have a saboteur in our midst." Every head in the room turned to follow his gaze, which had locked onto me like a heat-seeking missile. I felt 300 pairs of eyes examining me, calculating, judging. The wine stain on my shirt suddenly felt like evidence at a crime scene. "Since someone thinks it's funny to disrupt our celebration," Felix continued, "perhaps we should have our own little entertainment." He gestured to someone near the back of the room, and suddenly a large screen descended from the ceiling. A laptop appeared on the podium, and Felix began connecting cables with the efficiency of someone who'd planned this moment. "You see," he said to the crowd, "I believe in transparency, in showing people exactly who they're dealing with." My stomach dropped. Whatever he was about to show, it wasn't going to be good. "Nola, darling," Felix called out. "Would you mind bringing me that USB drive from your purse? The one with the footage from Orion's last professional appearance?" Nola hesitated for just a moment, long enough for me to see the conflict in her eyes, before reaching into her designer handbag. She pulled out a small silver USB drive and handed it to Felix with the expression of someone passing along a loaded weapon. I remembered that footage. It was from a city council meeting 6 months ago, where I'd been asking questions about a local development project. I'd been passionate, maybe a little too loud, and definitely underdressed compared to the other reporters. In the video, I looked exactly like what I'd become, a has-been journalist desperately trying to stay relevant. Felix inserted the USB drive with theatrical flourish. Let's all see what real journalism looks like these days. But when the video began to play, it wasn't me on the screen, it was Nola. The footage showed her at what looked like last year's company Christmas party, drunk and flirting outrageously with a series of increasingly uncomfortable-looking colleagues. In one particularly cringe-worthy moment, she was doing some kind of interpretive dance to Santa Baby, while a horrified intern tried to escape her attention. The crowd's reaction was immediate and brutal. Laughter erupted from every corner of the ballroom, but it wasn't the good-natured chuckling that had greeted Felix's purple wine disaster. This was the kind of laughter that destroyed reputations. "What is this?" Felix hissed, frantically trying to stop the video, but it kept playing. Now it was showing him in what appeared to be a boardroom, having a complete meltdown over someone using his personal coffee mug. He was screaming at a secretary with such intensity that spittle was flying from his mouth. I felt a hand on my shoulder and turned to see Sasha grinning like he'd just won the lottery. "You switched the USB drives," I whispered. "Photography teaches you to be good with small electronic devices," he said. "Also, Evelyn Morrison is a very helpful woman when she's had a few drinks." Evelyn Morrison was Nola's supposed best friend and the biggest gossip in the marketing industry. She'd apparently been collecting embarrassing footage of her colleagues for years, just in case she ever needed leverage. On screen, the video had moved on to Felix attempting to parallel park his BMW and failing so spectacularly that he'd managed to block 3 spaces while denting 2 other cars. The audio captured him having a complete breakdown, including several creative uses of profanity that definitely weren't appropriate for a corporate celebration. Felix finally managed to stop the video, but the damage was done. The entire ballroom was buzzing with excited whispers and the soft clicking of phone cameras. Within minutes, I knew, clips of this footage would be spreading across social media like wildfire. "Technical difficulties," Felix announced weakly, his purple-stained shirt now completely forgotten in light of this new humiliation. But I wasn't done. While everyone was distracted by the video, I'd been busy with my own phone. Felix's entire board of directors was here tonight, and I'd managed to collect their contact information from the event's networking app. With a few quick taps, I sent each of them an anonymous text message with a link to a cloud storage folder. The folder contained everything Evelyn had shared with me over the past few weeks. Photos of Felix's expense reports, showing personal purchases charged to the company, screenshots of emails where he'd taken credit for other people's work, and a particularly damaging audio recording of him making disparaging comments about the company's biggest client. I watched as, one by one, the board members began checking their phones. Their expressions shifted from curiosity to concern to barely concealed anger. Felix was still trying to salvage his speech when board member Patricia Hendricks approached the stage. She was a stern woman in her 60s who'd built her own consulting firm from nothing and had zero tolerance for incompetence. "Felix," she said, her voice cutting through the crowd noise like a scalpel, "I think we need to have a conversation." The other board members were gathering now, forming a semicircle around the stage like corporate vultures. Felix's face went from purple-stained to pale in the span of seconds. Perhaps we should discuss this privately, he said, glancing nervously at the crowd. Perhaps we should, Patricia agreed, along with some interesting financial documents that just came to my attention. As the board members escorted a visibly shaking Felix toward a side exit, I felt my phone buzz. It was a text from my daughter Mara, who was away at college. "Dad, what's going on? People are sending me videos of Mom dancing and some guy covered in purple stuff. Are you okay?" I stared at the message, feeling the weight of what I'd just set in motion. Mara was 19, smart as a whip, and deserved better than to find out about her parents' marriage falling apart through social media memes. Before I could respond, another text came through. "Also, Mom's been calling me asking weird questions about you, like what time you come home and if you seem different lately. It's creepy, Dad." That stopped me cold. Nola had been using our daughter to spy on me. The betrayal cut deeper than the affair, deeper than the public humiliation, deeper than anything Felix could have done with spilled wine. I looked across the ballroom and found Nola standing alone near the bar, staring at her phone with an expression of dawning horror. She was probably seeing the same videos everyone else was, watching her reputation crumble in real time. When she looked up and our eyes met across the room, I saw something I'd never seen in her face before. Genuine fear. Good, I thought. Now she knows how it feels. But as I started walking toward her, I realized this was far from over. Felix might be temporarily neutralized, and Nola might be publicly embarrassed, but neither of them was the type to go down without a fight. And I was about to discover just how dirty they were willing to get. Nola's purse sat unattended on the bar while she frantically tried to do damage control, working her phone like a crisis management consultant. I'd been watching her for 10 minutes, waiting for the right moment. The right moment came when Patricia Hendricks approached her with the expression of someone about to deliver very bad news. "Nola, dear," Patricia said, her voice carrying the kind of fake sweetness that preceded corporate executions. "I think we need to discuss your future with the company." While Nola was distracted by what was clearly going to be an unpleasant conversation, I made my move. Years of journalism had taught me to be invisible when necessary, and right now I was practically a ghost. Her purse was expensive leather, the kind that screamed, "I make more money than my husband." Inside, among the usual collection of lipstick, breath mints, and business cards, I found what I was looking for: a folded piece of paper tucked into a side compartment. The note was in Felix's handwriting, all sharp angles and aggressive strokes. "Gallery opening tonight was perfect cover. Meet me there after this disaster ends. We need to discuss the Orion situation. Time to accelerate our timeline. F." I photographed the note with my phone, then carefully replaced it exactly where I'd found it. As I stepped away from the bar, I caught a glimpse of Nola's conversation with Patricia. Based on Nola's increasingly pale complexion, it wasn't going well. My phone buzzed with another text from Mara. "Dad, seriously, what's happening? Someone posted a video of Mom on TikTok and it has 50,000 views already." I stepped outside onto the hotel's terrace to call her. The night air was cool against my wine-stained shirt, and the city lights stretched out below like a circuit board. "Mara, honey, it's complicated," I said when she picked up. "Dad, are you and Mom getting divorced?" The question hit me like a physical blow, not because it was unexpected, but because hearing it out loud made it real in a way that all of Felix's wine-throwing and Nola's late nights hadn't. "I don't know," I said, which was the most honest answer I could give. "But I need you to know that whatever happens between your mother and me, it has nothing to do with you." "She's been asking me to spy on you," Mara said quietly. "She wanted me to ask you about your schedule, your friends, whether you've been acting suspicious. I told her it was weird, but she said she was worried about you." "Worried about me how?" "She said you might be having some kind of breakdown, that you've been paranoid and jealous and making up stories about her. The manipulation was breathtaking in its audacity. Nola wasn't just cheating on me. She was systematically undermining my relationship with our daughter, painting me as unstable so that when the divorce came, she'd have ammunition for a custody battle. "Mara," I said carefully, "has your mother ever mentioned Felix Rourde to you?" There was a pause. "Her boss? Yeah, she talks about him sometimes. She says he's really smart and successful and that he's been mentoring her. Why?" "No reason. Listen, sweetheart, things might get a little crazy over the next few days. If anyone asks you about me or about our family, just tell them you don't want to discuss it, okay?" "Dad, you're scaring me." "I'm not trying to scare you. I'm just trying to protect you." After I hung up, I stood on the terrace for a long moment, looking out at the city and thinking about the note in Nola's purse. An art gallery made perfect sense as a meeting spot. Public enough to avoid suspicion, private enough for intimate conversations, and pretentious enough to appeal to Felix's inflated sense of sophistication. I pulled out my phone and did a quick search for gallery openings in the city tonight. There were 3, but only one made sense. The Morrison Contemporary Gallery was hosting an exhibition called Fractured Perspectives, Art in the Age of Deception. The irony was so perfect, it hurt. More importantly, the Morrison Contemporary Gallery was owned by Evelyn Morrison, Nola's supposed best friend and my new source of insider information. I went back inside and found Sasha near the bar, watching the ongoing drama with the enthusiasm of someone attending a particularly good sporting event. "How'd you like to do a little reconnaissance work?" I asked. "What kind of reconnaissance?" "The kind where we follow my cheating wife and her purple-stained boyfriend to an art gallery and find out exactly what they're planning." Sasha grinned. "I thought you'd never ask." We left the hotel separately, with Sasha taking his motorcycle and me following in my 10-year-old Honda Civic. The Morrison Contemporary Gallery was in the Arts District, a gentrified area where old warehouses had been converted into trendy spaces for people with more money than sense. I parked 2 blocks away and walked, keeping to the shadows. The gallery was buzzing with the kind of people who attended art openings. Lots of black clothing, serious expressions, and conversations about the profound meaninglessness of contemporary existence. Through the large front windows, I could see Nola and Felix near the back of the gallery, standing in front of a painting that looked like someone had thrown a bucket of paint at a canvas and called it art. They were deep in conversation, their body language intimate in a way that made my chest tight. Sasha appeared beside me like a ghost, carrying a small device that looked like a cross between a phone and a radio. "Directional microphone," he explained. "Another photography tool. Point it at someone and you can hear conversations from 50 yards away." We positioned ourselves across the street, hidden in the doorway of a closed bookstore. Sasha aimed the device at the gallery window and handed me a pair of earbuds. Suddenly, I could hear them as clearly as if I were standing next to them. "Completely out of control," Nola was saying. "I never expected him to fight back like this." "He's desperate," Felix replied. "Desperate people do stupid things, but we can use this to our advantage." "How?" "Think about it, Nola. Tonight, he sabotaged a corporate event, humiliated me in front of the board, and leaked confidential company information. That's grounds for a restraining order at minimum. But he didn't actually do anything illegal. Doesn't matter. We just need to establish a pattern of erratic behavior. Your testimony about his increasing paranoia, combined with tonight's public outburst, will be enough to paint him as unstable." "I don't know, Felix. He's not stupid. He's going to figure out what we're doing." "Let him figure it out. By then it'll be too late. The divorce papers are already drawn up, and with the harassment allegations, you'll get full custody of Mara and half of everything he owns. He doesn't own much. He owns enough. Plus there's the life insurance policy." I felt the world tilt sideways. Life insurance policy? Felix, we agreed we weren't going to… Relax. I'm not talking about anything dramatic. But unstable people sometimes have accidents. They drive too fast, drink too much, make poor decisions, especially when they're facing public humiliation and financial ruin. The microphone picked up the sound of Nola's sharp intake of breath. You're talking about… I'm not talking about anything specific. I'm just saying that life is unpredictable, and it's always good to be prepared for unexpected opportunities. I pulled out the earbuds, my hands shaking. This wasn't just about an affair anymore. This was about destroying my life so completely that there would be nothing left to rebuild. Sasha was watching me with concern. What did you hear? They're not just planning to divorce me, I said. They're planning to destroy me, and maybe worse. What do you mean, worse? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Stop watching us, Orion. Some things are better left alone. I looked up at the gallery window. Felix was staring directly at me, his phone in his hand, a smile playing at the corners of his mouth. He'd known we were there the entire time. The text message felt like ice water in my veins. Stop watching us, Orion. Some things are better left alone. Felix stood in the gallery window, 50 yards away, his phone still in his hand and that predatory smile still on his face. Even from this distance, I could see the calculation in his eyes. He'd known we were listening. The entire conversation had been theater, performed for an audience of 2. We need to go, I told Sasha. Now. But as we turned to leave, 3 men emerged from the shadows around us. They weren't thugs. They were too well dressed for that. Security consultants, maybe, or private investigators, the kind of people who solved problems quietly and expensively. Mr. Vanton, the tallest one said, his voice professionally polite. Mr. Rourde would like to have a word with you. I'm busy, I said. I'm afraid he insists. Sasha stepped closer to me, his photographer's instincts kicking in. You want to be real careful here, gentlemen. Lots of witnesses around, lots of cameras. The tall man smiled. Of course, we're all civilized people here. Mr. Rourde simply wants to clear up some misunderstandings. 5 minutes later, we were sitting in the gallery's back office, a cramped space filled with art catalogs and the smell of expensive coffee. Felix sat behind the desk like he owned the place, which, given his relationship with Evelyn Morrison, he probably did in every way that mattered. Nola stood beside him, her earlier nervousness replaced by something harder. She looked at me with the expression of someone examining an insect under a microscope. Orion, Felix said, settling back in his chair. We need to discuss your behavior tonight. My behavior? The sabotage, the invasion of privacy, the stalking. He gestured toward the window. Following us here with surveillance equipment crosses several legal lines. Funny, I said. I was thinking the same thing about using our daughter to spy on me. Nola's composure cracked slightly. Mara called you. She did. Apparently you've been coaching her to gather intelligence on my daily routine. That's not suspicious at all. I was concerned about you, Nola said. You've been acting paranoid, jealous, erratic. I thought you might be having some kind of breakdown. Erratic like switching USB drives at a corporate party? Felix leaned forward. You admit to tampering with company property? I admit to giving people a more honest look at their leadership. That's corporate espionage, Orion. It's a felony. The room fell silent, except for the distant sounds of the gallery opening continuing in the front room. I could hear laughter, clinking glasses, the kind of conversations where people said profound things about meaningless art. Here's what's going to happen, Felix continued. You're going to apologize publicly for tonight's disruption. You're going to seek professional help for your obvious emotional issues, and you're going to stay away from Nola and from me. And if I don't? Then we'll be forced to take legal action. Harassment, stalking, corporate espionage. The charges will pile up quickly. And given your recent erratic behavior, I doubt any judge will be sympathetic. Sasha spoke up from beside me. You're forgetting something important. What's that? We recorded your little conversation out there. The part where you discussed unexpected opportunities regarding Orion's life insurance policy. Felix's smile never wavered. What conversation? Nola and I were discussing art. Weren't we, darling? That's right, Nola said. We were talking about the themes in the exhibition. Fractured perspectives, deceptive appearances, very metaphorical. Besides, Felix added, even if such a conversation had taken place, recording someone without their consent is illegal in this state. Any such recording would be inadmissible in court and could result in criminal charges against whoever made it. He'd done his homework. Of course he had. So here we are, Felix said, spreading his hands wide. You can choose to be reasonable, or you can choose to be destroyed. Your call. I looked at Nola, searching her face for any trace of the woman I'd married 15 years ago. The woman who'd cried during romantic movies and bought birthday presents for our neighbors' dogs. The woman who'd once told me that the best thing about being married was having someone who always had your back. That woman was gone, if she'd ever existed at all. I need to use the restroom, I said. Felix gestured toward a door in the corner. Of course, take your time. The bathroom was small and windowless, with the kind of aggressive lighting that made everyone look like a corpse. I splashed water on my face and stared at myself in the mirror, trying to process what had just happened. They'd outmaneuvered me completely. Every move I'd made tonight, the wine trick, the USB swap, the surveillance, had been anticipated and turned against me. I wasn't playing chess with these people. I was playing checkers while they operated on a completely different level. But as I stood there, staring at my wine-stained reflection, I realized something important. They'd made one crucial mistake. They'd underestimated how much I had left to lose. When I came out of the bathroom, Felix and Nola were waiting with expectant expressions. Have you made your decision? Felix asked. I have, I said. I choose option 3. There is no option 3. Sure there is. Option 3 is where I stop playing defense and start playing offense, where I stop reacting to your moves and start making my own. Felix's smile flickered. Orion, you're not thinking clearly. Actually, I'm thinking more clearly than I have in months. You want to destroy my reputation? Go ahead. You want to take my money? There's not much to take. You want to turn my daughter against me? You can try, but Mara's smarter than you think. I stood up, Sasha rising beside me. But here's the thing you both forgot, I continued. I'm a journalist. A good one, even if I'm currently underemployed. And journalists have one particular skill that makes them very dangerous enemies. What's that? Nola asked, her voice barely above a whisper. We know how to find the truth, and once we find it, we know how to make sure everyone else sees it too. I walked toward the door, then paused and looked back. Enjoy the art opening, I said. I have some investigating to do. As Sasha and I left the gallery, I could feel their eyes on my back. But for the first time all night, I wasn't the one who was afraid. The real game was just beginning. 3 days later, I was sitting in Mickey's boxing club at 7 a.m, nursing my 3rd cup of coffee and staring at a laptop screen filled with information that would have made Felix Rourde's corporate espionage accusations look like jaywalking. Sasha sat across from me, surrounded by printouts, photographs, and what looked like enough evidence to fuel a dozen investigative articles. His contacts in the photography world had proven surprisingly useful for gathering intelligence. Tell me again about the insurance policy, he said, highlighting something on a bank statement. $2 million, I said. Nola took it out 6 months ago without telling me. Made herself the beneficiary naturally. Around the same time she started working late. Around the same time she started planning my destruction. The evidence was overwhelming once you knew where to look. Felix had been systematically embezzling from Pinnacle Marketing for 2 years. using a network of shell companies and fake vendors. Nola had been helping him, using her position in accounts payable to approve fraudulent invoices. But the real revelation was the scope of their plan. This wasn't just about an affair or even about stealing money. They'd been planning to frame me for the embezzlement, using my financial desperation and recent erratic behavior as cover. The divorce was supposed to be the final act. Nola would play the victim of an unstable husband. Felix would emerge as her protector, and I would disappear into a cloud of criminal charges and public humiliation. The life insurance policy was just insurance, I said, in case the frame job didn't work. My phone rang. It was Mara. Dad, something weird is happening. Mom showed up at my dorm last night with some guy I've never met. They wanted to take me out to dinner, but when I said I was busy, the guy got really pushy about it. What did he look like? Tall, expensive suit, kind of creepy smile. Mom introduced him as a family friend, but she was acting all nervous around him. Felix. He was trying to get to Mara, probably to use her as leverage against me. Listen to me carefully, I said. If you see that man again, or if anyone tries to pressure you into going anywhere with them, you call campus security immediately. Then you call me. Dad, you're scaring me again. Good. You should be scared. These people are dangerous. After I hung up, Sasha looked at me with concern. They're escalating. Which means we're running out of time. I'd spent 3 days building a case that would destroy both of them, but evidence was only useful if you could present it to the right people. Felix had too much influence, too many connections, too much money. A traditional approach, going to the police, the media, the corporate authorities, would just give him time to cover his tracks and discredit me. I needed something more direct. The warehouse district, I said suddenly. What about it? Felix owns property there. 3 buildings he bought through one of his shell companies. I bet that's where they're keeping the physical evidence. Fake invoices, forged documents, maybe even cash. Sasha grinned. You want to break in? I want to invite them to a meeting. 2 hours later, I sent identical text messages to both Felix and Nola. I know about the embezzlement. I know about the frame job. I know about the insurance policy. Meet me at 1247 Industrial Boulevard at 8 p.m. tonight. Come alone, or I go to the FBI tomorrow morning. Felix called me within 5 minutes. You're making a serious mistake, Orion. The only mistake I made was trusting my wife and underestimating her boyfriend. You have no idea what you're dealing with. Sure I do. I'm dealing with a couple of amateur criminals who got greedy and sloppy. The kind of people who think they're smarter than everyone else but leave paper trails everywhere they go. Even if you had evidence, which you don't, who's going to believe a washed-up journalist with a history of mental instability? We'll find out tonight. I hung up and immediately called Detective Maria Santos, a contact from my newspaper days who now worked white-collar crime for the city police. I'd already sent her copies of everything we'd discovered, with instructions to open the files if she didn't hear from me by midnight. The warehouse district at night was exactly what you'd expect. Dark, empty, full of shadows and the kind of ambient menace that made horror movies profitable. Building 1247 was a converted textile factory, all brick and broken windows, with the kind of architectural character that real estate developers called authentic industrial charm. I arrived early and positioned myself where I could see the entire street. Sasha was across the way with his camera and a cell phone, ready to call for backup if things went wrong. Felix and Nola arrived together in his BMW, which still showed signs of purple staining on the interior. They approached the building cautiously, like people walking into a trap, which of course they were. I met them at the entrance, a heavy metal door that opened into a space that smelled like dust and old machinery. Orion, Nola said, her voice carefully controlled. This is insane. Whatever you think you know. I know you've stolen over $3 million from Pinnacle Marketing, I said. I know you were planning to frame me for it. I know about the life insurance policy, and I know about your backup plan in case the frame job didn't work." Felix stepped forward, his corporate confidence intact despite the circumstances. "You're delusional. Even if such evidence existed, which it doesn't, you obtained it illegally. It would never hold up in court." "Who said anything about court?" I pulled out my phone and showed them the screen. It displayed a live video feed of our conversation, being broadcast to a private channel with over 200 viewers. "Say hello to the internet," I said. "We're live on 6 different platforms, with automatic uploads to cloud storage. Every word you've said since you walked in here is now part of the permanent record." Felix lunged toward me, but I'd expected that. I stepped aside, letting his momentum carry him into a stack of old crates. "Assault," I said to the camera. "Add that to the list." Nola was staring at her phone, her face pale. "Felix, we're trending on social media. Someone posted the video from the party, and now this." "Shut up!" Felix snarled, getting to his feet. "Both of you, shut up!" But it was too late. The dam had burst, and everything was flowing out. Their affair, the embezzlement, the frame job, the insurance policy. In the harsh light of public exposure, their carefully constructed plan crumbled like a house of cards. "The FBI will be very interested in your financial records," I said, "especially the shell companies. Did you really think nobody would notice $3 million walking out the door?" "You have no proof," Felix said, but his voice lacked conviction. "I have bank records, forged invoices, email communications, and recorded conversations. I have enough proof to bury you both." Nola was crying now, her perfect makeup running down her cheeks in dark streams. "Orion, please, we can work this out. We can what? Go back to being married while you plot my destruction? Pretend this never happened while you steal money and plan my accidental demise?" "I never wanted to hurt you," she whispered, "but you did hurt me. You destroyed 15 years of marriage, turned our daughter into a spy, and tried to frame me for crimes I didn't commit. All for what? Money? Status? The thrill of being with someone more successful?" The sound of sirens filled the air outside. Detective Santos had apparently decided not to wait for my midnight check-in. "Game over," I said. As the police led them away in handcuffs, Felix looked back at me with pure hatred in his eyes. "This isn't finished," he said. "Yes," I replied, "it is." The live stream ended with over 50,000 viewers and hundreds of thousands of shares across social media. By morning, the story would be national news, a tale of corporate corruption, marital betrayal, and one man's fight to reclaim his life. I walked out of the warehouse alone, leaving behind the wreckage of my marriage and the ashes of my old life. Mara was waiting for me in the parking lot, having driven down from college as soon as she saw the news. "Dad," she said, wrapping me in a hug that felt like forgiveness and hope and new beginnings all rolled into one. "It's over, sweetheart," I said. Finally, it's over. And for the first time in months, I believed it.